Hi, I am Niharika Nanda and you are listening to Express Podcasts. In the second part of this 5-part series in association with the Central Square Foundation, we will explore what using educational technology solutions, or commonly referred to as EdTech, for good looks like. We will speak to experts in this field to understand how access to educational technology solutions can transform learning in the classroom and aid in shaping the overall learning and development of a child in school and at home. Joining me will be Gauri Gupta, who is Project Director for EdTech at CSF, and she'll be sharing insights on the evidence for good EdTech to complement learning of a child at home. And Sashwati Banerjee, who is the founder of Top Parent, who will be talking about the supply of contextually relevant and pedagogically sound learning solutions for low-income segments and leveraging EdTech to improve student learning outcomes in India. Joining me later on the show will be Priyanka Agarwal, a parent from Haridwar, Uttarakhand. She has a 6-year-old daughter, Krati Agarwal, and has been using Top Parent for over 2 years to support her child's learning at home. We will begin by talking to Gauri Gupta and Sashwati Banerjee. Before we get started, Gauri, for the benefit of our listeners, can you tell us what one means when we say the word EdTech and what does it comprise?
I'm so glad you're asking that question, Niharika, because, EdTech would mean very different things for different people. When we think about EdTech, I think the way we structure it for simplicity is that there can be tech which supports students, and it can support students for the purposes of self-learning, practice, doubt solving, remediation. There can be tech which supports teachers for building their capacity or for helping them transact better in the classroom. Or there can be tech which supports governance in the school system, whether through administration of assessments or whether helping governments monitor, student attendance, etc. All of this, right, is EdTech in our minds because all of this can help impact student learning outcomes.
Right. And what is the role that EdTech solutions or products can play in helping children from low-income backgrounds learn effectively?
At the Central Square Foundation, we've always believed in the power of education technology to democratize the quality of education in India. With the Right to Education Act, we have been quite successful in getting our children into the school system. But the question always is that are our children learning as much as they should? And we do believe that technology, whether it is used within the schools or whether it is used to augment and support what is happening in the school, is a very powerful tool which can help our children learn better. And let me give you a simple example. Think of a household where both the parents are construction workers, where the children do not necessarily have this enough parental guidance to support them with education. Imagine a scenario where the children are going into government schools, the teacher capacity is average, the children do not have enough teaching learning materials to play around with, but they do have access to their parents' phones, when the parents come back in the evening. And on their parents' phones, they have access to the same high quality resources which are contextualized in their vernacular languages, are suited to their environment as a child in the best school in Delhi would have. And that is the power of EdTech, where, I don't need anything else, but I have, access to a device and a high quality solution. And that is able to teach me a lot.
Actually, I also just wanted to add on to what Gauri was saying that, despite all efforts that have been made and continue to be made, year on year, what we see is that children are unable to read at their grade level and do basic math at their grade level. Now, if you really think about it, this is like the foundational piece of what children need to know, right? And I think I totally agree with what Gauri was saying that, giving them something which is in their hands is not just a need. It's really, to me, one of the most imperative solutions that need to be provided to even shift that needle where 55% children are unable to read at grade level, right? Like that, I think is very, very powerful.
And talking about products, Sashwati, Top Parent as a mobile application provides resources and teaching learning materials for the child to have a holistic development and learning, and for the parent to help them in it. The app also has various contests and rewards around festivals to enhance engagement of the parents in their child's learning journey. But why the parent? Why do we feel that there is a need to equip and involve the parents in the learning journey of their child at an early stage? Like, why aren't teachers and classrooms sufficient for this purpose?
Why we think parental engagement is important is because, Niharika, there's just an insurmountable amount of research and data that basically say that the more parents engage with their kids, the better it is for their child's not just learning, but also life skills. In the early childhood years, this is even more critical because really in a given time in the day, the child is spending most of their time at home. So whether parents consider themselves to be educators or not, by default, they become educators and role models, right? Much more than classroom and teachers at that age group. Of course, the matrix changes as one grows older, but at the end of the day, in the early years, this is really the main piece of work. And that's why parental engagement becomes very critical. The problem that happens is, and even when we did our needs assessment study with over 550 low-income parents in MP and Delhi NCR, one of the things we kept hearing during the research, and this is something that is validated also by worldwide research, is that in low-income communities, parents feel very incapable. Right? They really don't know what to do. They just don't have either the resources or the wherewithal, or they themselves are not confident, right? I mean, the word we kept hearing was saksham, कि हम अपने आप को सक्षम नहीं समझते. And that's a very telling word, right? Because it's not like they are not doing things with their kids. They just don't know that is equal to learning in a child's mind. So, for example, if you involve your child in a daily chore, let's say you tell your child, come help me fold clothes. Now, that's a learning opportunity where you're doing a play-based activity, but you can also teach the child about colors, about patterns, right? So a simple daily activity at home without involving anything, any big props or materials, can also be a learning point for the child.
And taking this forward, Gauri, what evidence exists around the effective use and adoption of EdTech devices for at-home learning by young school children? Has the CSF done any studies in this regard?
Yeah, Niharika, I think one of the biggest challenges that, all of us who work in the space of EdTech face is that, we have as many believers as there are skeptics of EdTech. And one of the reasons why that happens is because, we don't have enough evidence for what works. More importantly, what doesn't, how it works, and how it can be scaled. So one of the things that we are very keen to do for the ecosystem is to put out the evidence of, what is working, what is not, and how is it working. In that context, I think there are 2 or 3 types of EdTech where we see very strong evidence emerging, both in India as well as globally. The first one is around personalized adaptive learning, which is almost adapting to the learning level of the child. And there, through research in India, very rigorous RCTs that have been conducted, we find that there is a significant learning gain that happens if children are using personalized adaptive learning, and hence we see it being a very effective tool for the purposes of remediation, right? Meaning that if you have a grade 8 classroom where children are at varying learning levels and the teacher frankly does not have the time or the capacity to be able to, do physical remediation with these children, you deploy a solution like personalized adaptive learning and you see children catching up and getting to the learning level of the class. The other type of technology that we are seeing very promising evidence is gamified solutions, which are helping children achieve foundational learning skills with very limited dosage at home. And here again, there was a RCT conducted on a solution called Chimple, which showed that with 10 minutes of usage of Chimple a day, students in grade 1 almost jumped 1 year of learning, right? Which means that if the solution was being used by children for 10 minutes a day, 6 days a week, grade 1 children actually improved in math by 1 year of schooling. And, it's also intuitive to understand this, that, for a child, if he or she comes and practices 10 minutes of simple addition every day, right, we are expecting to see huge learning gains, right? So that's the second type of technology that we are seeing evidence for and we are excited about. And then there is this, whole piece around assessment-informed instruction, which basically means that if we are able to assess our children, right, and teachers are able to use the results from that assessment to inform instruction, then we see huge benefits in the classroom. So, for example, if the teacher finds that the majority of the class is struggling with addition of fractions, right? And she decides not to move on to the next topic, but address that topic first, clarify the misconceptions that exist, and tailor her instruction basis that assessment, then the learning is much faster, right? So these are some of the technologies that we are very excited about, which is a combination of technologies being implemented within classrooms, but also technologies being used at home for learning.
Right. And as far as technology is concerned, we need to address the fact that these are very young kids. They don't own devices of their own, and that is where parents come in. So, Sashwati, how do you ensure that parents are trained and motivated to be the catalyst for their child's learning journey? What steps has Top Parent taken in this regard?
Okay, I'm first going to say that I don't think we are in the business of training parents. I think parents are self-trained and they kind of figure it out as they go along. And that, I think, is the beauty of parenting in many ways. But having said that, a lot of our populations that we serve, Niharika, are mostly digitally not so literate, right? And so it becomes very critical. And the flip side of it is that the kids are first generation digital learners, but they are well versed with, it doesn't matter if it's a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, instinctively they are digital natives. And they just know how to use the phone a lot better than their parents do. In fact, in a lot of families, we know and we hear anecdotal evidence to say kids are often told by their parents, help me download this or help me do this, etc., right? But having said that, there are many things that we do at Top Parent because our aim and our goal really is to make the parent saksham, right? For them to feel comfortable. So there are a bunch of stuff that we do. One is that the app itself was developed with user-centric approach, right? So we used a human-centered design approach where even to date, if we have to change anything, we actually go back to our user and say, do you understand this? Do you know how to navigate this, right? So it's a very simple app. Anybody who can operate a phone will know how to operate an app. What we do train them on is early childhood development, because this is the one missing piece, particularly in new parents that we see. They just don't have the support system that is needed, and they don't know where to go, the wherewithal, etc. So we have a lot of parent-facing videos on the app, and which we encourage parents to see. So that's one piece of it. We also have a lot of strategy-facing videos, what you can do with your child, what games you can play, what activities you can do, etc. So almost like a view and do type of piece. So that's just in terms of parent content, where we have built features so that parents themselves can learn. On the technical front, we make sure that because textual literacy is low in our communities, we want to make sure that we use as much audio-supported and audio-assisted pieces as possible, as well as graphics. So the app has been designed, and the UX UI has been designed specifically to address that challenge. It's in the local language and in the vernacular, so it's very easy to understand. And basically, from a back-end perspective, is the whole nudge system that has been designed, which also enables us to keep the parent in the loop, right? Like your child is doing well in these things, your child needs help in these things. So that's the nudge that we close through an AI-assisted chatbot, which uses real-time data from the back end, right from the time we do a pre-assessment, to say where the child is, at what level and what competency levels the child is in. to carrying them through that journey. At every stage, we keep the parent involved through sending them, report cards or messages, etc., but also sending them what they can do. So that's one of the ways that we involve parents. Over and above that, we have an incentivized model. So top parent of the week, rewards, recognition, badges, cash paybacks, etc., which also keep them motivated and incentivized and kind of willing to learn. And the last point I'll say is that, as Gauri was saying, there is very little evidence in this country on the use of education technology, particularly at home, and what difference it makes. And one of the things we have done, because we've crossed 1 million downloads. We have over 500,000 active users on the app. It enables us to get a data set that is very large. And that is helping us realize, and we've seen Dr. Ryan Baker, who is one of our research advisors from University of Pennsylvania, has actually done large-scale data analysis to show that if parents are engaged with the content on top parent, we see better learning progression in kids. So there's a correlation.
Right. And as Sashwati mentioned, the group of people that we are working with aren't very digitally literate and come from a low-income background. So, Gauri, what efforts has CSF taken towards creating solutions towards equitable access of EdTech solutions for children from low-income settings?
When Sashwati started the journey with top parent, right, the question in the room would always be that will children have access to devices? But I think over COVID, smartphone penetration in India is increasing very, very rapidly. And what the Bharat survey for EdTech, was telling us that 72% of children from low-income households have access to a shared device. And, very interestingly, there were no gender variations observed in this access. The survey also told us that 74% children are spending more than 30 minutes on any given day on their parents' devices. 65% girls and 55% boys are using their phones daily, the household phone daily. And India also has, one of the cheapest internet data packages in the world. So I think children are accessing their parents' phones. They are getting access to it more and more, even in low-income communities. And the survey was done across urban and rural India. And I think with the strategies that Sashwati was, defining to ensure that parents are making their phones available and nudging their children to use some of these learning solutions, we can get to a stage where instead of just watching YouTube or playing games, children are engaging with educational content that can help the school system deliver better learning outcomes. In addition to just device access, right, there needs to be a lot done on the product side to ensure that, products are equitable. So, for example, most of Indian EdTech has been built for middle and high income India. There is very little that has been built for low income. And I think through efforts that Sashwati is making and many other organizations, both in the non-profit and the for-profit space, are making to reach low income, we do see solutions getting built out. But these solutions need to look significantly different from, what is available for middle and high income, right? And let me give you a simple example. So I remember many years back, right, we did try and introduce a solution that had been built for middle income schools into the government school context. And frankly, it bombed, right? That product bombed primarily because just translation does not amount to contextualization of that solution and making, equitable access. We realized that, children even in grade 6 were not able to understand the complexity and read the question very clearly. So the product needed to have a voiceover, right, which allowed children to answer the questions and to understand the questions better. The examples that were given in the product were not necessarily contextual to the setting which low-income children were used to, right? So the examples had to change. The product had to align with the state curriculum, right? So a lot of effort has to be made in order to make a product contextual for the segment in which we are introducing it. And I think if we are able to do that, it's that then that we ensure that there is equitable access to high quality learning resources for our children from low income backgrounds.
Right, and as far as the parents are concerned, Sashwati, what kind of feedback have you received from parents when they participate in improving the learning outcomes of their children, and what have been some of the results so far?
Yeah, so generally, I think overall, the feedback we get from parents have been largely positive. They definitely feel more empowered now to be part of their child's learning journey. They also end up spending a lot more time with their child. And because we have these interesting features on the app, like we have a family quiz, right? Which is modeled on the Kaun Banega Crorepati piece, but it's a fun thing to do, which I don't think parents really ended up playing with their kids. And again, let's understand contextually, we're looking at households that don't indulge in these sort of things, right? I mean, these are households which probably don't even get a newspaper in the house, right? So teaching learning materials are very, very limited within homes like these. So to kind of be part of their child's journey, the fact that they're being engaged and they come to know how their child is doing in math or English or Hindi or Marathi is very important to them. They don't want to know the details. They don't want to know, has my child learned 1 + 1 = 2? They just want to know math mein acha kar raha hai ya nahi kar raha hai, right? Like, so their needs to know are also very basic. I think what we have heard is that they have been very appreciative that it is in the vernacular, because like Gauri was saying, not everybody is building for India 3 for Bharat, right? So the fact that this is something in their language that is relatable to them, that talks to them, etc., is very critical for them. The fact that it's been designed to take very little space on their phone, because ours is a PWA, which is a progressive web app, which means it takes less than 3 MB space on their phone. Storage is a big problem. We are looking at working with low-end devices, etc. And the fact that it's audio supported, they find incredibly useful and empowering, right? Because just the fact that we've integrated audio in almost everything, including even on our AI chatbot, we have an audio-supported voice feedback mechanism. And because the content is available in their local language, etc. Also because it's an anytime, anywhere learning. So, one of the big challenges also during COVID was the fact that education was deployed through the phone by the school, but it was at specific timings, and the phone may or may not have been available during that time. So the child may or may not have been able to attend the class, but had to turn in a homework. But this doesn't have that type of challenge. Yeah, and because it's based on an accelerated learning framework, as Gauri also mentioned, hopefully the child is learning more.
And Gauri, there are so many EdTech products in the Indian market today. How do public and private stakeholders assess which is a good one?
So let me give you some numbers, Niharika. So there were 4,500 EdTech solutions catering to K-12 in 2018. The number went up to 9,000 in 2021. And in 2023, it's at 6,500, right? So that's the gamut, which is available for both institutional as well as retail stakeholders to choose from. And frankly, when I give an EdTech solution to my 10-year-old, I really never know whether he is just liking the visuals on it because all children just love to play on the phone, or is he really learning? And this is a big problem, right? Because when a government is procuring EdTech, basis presentations from EdTech companies, it is very difficult for them to figure out what a good EdTech solution is. And, a good EdTech solution for remediation may look very different from a good EdTech solution for the purposes of practice or doubt solving, right? So there is a variation in also within, different categories of EdTech. And this was a big problem that we were seeing in the market. And hence, we partnered with the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, to build out something called EdTech Tulna. Tulna, as we all know, means comparison in Hindi. And what Tulna is trying to do is to create standards for what good EdTech looks like, right? So Tulna will be able to say that for math, personalized adaptive learning, this is what it looks like, and so on and so forth. And what governments do is that when they procure EdTech, they include the Tulna standards within their RFPs. And the Tulna team will then train the government committee to evaluate against these standards. So in addition to, building capacity in government to recognize what good EdTech is doing, Tulna is also almost putting its neck out and saying that, look, I will publish evaluations using the Tulna standards and put out these evaluations in the public domain for everyone to really know how the product is faring on dimensions of pedagogy, on dimensions of technology and content. And that combination, which essentially is talking to product design, is a very important first step in determining the quality of EdTech. So we are hoping that, through creating standards like Tulna, we are able to bring convergence between demand and supply on quality of EdTech.
And next, I will be talking to Priyanka Agarwal, a parent from Haridwar, Uttarakhand. She has been using Top Parent for over 2 years to support her child's learning at home. This part of the conversation will be in Hindi. प्रियंका जी, आप 2 साल से ये एडटेक डिवाइसेस यूज कर रही हैं, तो क्या आप मुझे बताएंगी कि आप ये डिवाइसेस यूज करके किस तरह अपने बच्चे की पढ़ाई में उसकी सहायता करती हैं?
मैं सबसे मेन तो ये होता है कि मैं अपनी बेटी को ना इसमें ज्यादा से ज्यादा इन्वॉल्व करना चाहती हूँ, क्योंकि बच्चे आजकल ना हमारे टाइम की जो बोर्डिंग लाइफ थी उससे उभर चुके हैं और आज हम जान चुके हैं कि शिक्षा बच्चों के लिए है, बच्चे शिक्षा के लिए नहीं है। हमें उन्हें मोटिवेट करना है कि वो उस चीज को सीखे, उनके ऊपर बर्डन नहीं डालना है। उनके ऊपर किताबों का अगर बर्डन होगा तो वे उस चीज को ना सिर्फ बर्डन ही समझेंगे, उसे अपनी लाइफ का एक पार्ट नहीं समझेंगे। और अगर हमें उन्हें कुछ सिखाना है, कुछ बताना है, तो वो उन्हें बर्डन के थ्रू ना समझा के ना हम उसे एक मोरल टाइप से समझा सकते हैं। बहुत इजीली तरीके से वे बच्चे उससे सीख भी जाएंगे और उसे उन्हें मतलब प्रॉब्लम भी नहीं फेस करनी पड़ेगी और ये भी नहीं लगेगा कि हमारे ऊपर बहुत बड़ा बर्डन डाल दिया गया है। तो वो चीज मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगती है। और प्लस पॉइंट ये होता है कि उसमें हमें सभी सब्जेक्ट को कवर करने का मौका मिल रहा है। प्लस हिंदी, इंग्लिश, मैथ, जीके और जीएस जो ये सब्जेक्ट होते हैं मेनली, ये ऐसे कोई भी कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम नहीं होता जिसमें मोस्टली ये सब्जेक्ट ना आए। और बच्चे का अगर ये जो बेसिक नीड्स है वो ये सब्जेक्ट है, अगर ये ही बच्चे की ना स्ट्रॉन्ग बन जाएगी तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि उन्हें आगे प्रॉब्लम होगी।
और प्रियंका जी, इन एप्स की वजह से ही आप भी अपने बच्चों के सीखने और पढ़ने के प्रोसेस का पार्ट बन पाती हैं, उनके साथ समय बिता पाती हैं। तो आपको ये एक्सपीरियंस कैसा लगता है? हमें कुछ एग्जाम्पल्स, कुछ उदाहरण देके बताएंगी?
मैम एक्चुअली क्या होता है ना कि इतनी बिजी शेड्यूल हो गया आज के टाइम में कि पेरेंट्स के पास इतना टाइम नहीं होता कि वे पूरा प्रॉपर टाइम अपने बच्चों को दे सके। प्लस ये होता है कि हमें क्या होता है कि इस बहाने इस तरीके से ना उनके साथ एक टाइम स्पेंड करने का मौका मिलता है, उनके साथ उनकी लाइफ जीने का, उन्हें समझने का और खुद को समझने का एक मौका मिलता है, एक लाइफ जीने का मौका मिलता है। हम फिर से ना अपने उसी बचपन में चले जाते हैं बच्चों को सिखाते सिखाते। प्लस ये होता है कि जैसे मेरी गुड़िया अभी 6 इयर्स की है, वो 5 इयर्स की थी उस टाइम ना, जिस टाइम मतलब उसका ना मदर्स डे का था। तो उस टाइम उसको ना सभी बच्चों को कहा गया कि कोई बच्चा ऐसा है कि जो बोल सकता है अपनी मदर के लिए 2 शब्द, कुछ भी जो उनका मन करे। तो उस टाइम मुझे सबसे ज्यादा अच्छा लगा वो मोमेंट, क्योंकि मेरी गुड़िया ने उस टाइम खुद मतलब हैंडशेक किया और मैम से खुद कहा कि मैम मैं बोलना चाहती हूँ अपनी मम्मी के लिए। तो उसने 5 लाइन बोली मेरे लिए, लेकिन मेरे लिए वो सबसे अच्छा एक मोमेंट था। तब मैम ने मुझे खुद अप्रिशिएट किया कि कृति इज ए गिफ्टेड चाइल्ड। मैम ये मेरे लिए बहुत बड़ी बात थी और मैम सबसे के सामने उसे मतलब मैम ने उसे अप्रिशिएट किया और मैम सबसे ज्यादा ये कहा कि मतलब वो इतनी छोटी होते हुए भी इतनी अच्छे से सब चीजें समझ सकती थी, बोल सकती थी, जो और बच्चे नहीं कर पाते। और दूसरी बात ये है कि उसके एज के जो बच्चे थे वो तो कहीं से कहीं तक भी वो चीज नहीं कर पा रहे थे और उसने उन बच्चों को बीट किया जो उससे काफी बड़े थे, उसमें कंपटीशन में लाई। वीमार्ट एक मतलब हर शहर में होता है, ऐसी बात नहीं है, वीमार्ट में भी कंपटीशन हुआ, वहाँ इंग्लिश स्पीकिंग कंपटीशन हुआ, स्पेलिंग बी कंपटीशन हुआ वहाँ पर, और इस टाइप के कई कॉम्पिटिशन हुए, इंग्लिश से रिलेटेड डिबेट कंपटीशन हुआ वहाँ पे। तो वहाँ पे सभी में उसका फर्स्ट विनर के रूप में चुना गया और मैं उसके प्राइज भी दिया गया। प्लस उन्होंने मुझे सबने पूछा कि आप कहाँ से मतलब बच्चे के अंदर इतना इम्प्रूवमेंट ला रहे हो। मतलब बड़े बड़े जो स्कूल होते हैं वो बच्चे भी मैम हार गए थे उस टाइम ना, क्योंकि 300 से अबव ही बच्चे थे उस टाइम। तो मेरी गुड़िया ने उस टाइम भी मैम सक्सेस गेन की थी, तो मेरे लिए वो बहुत प्लस पॉइंट है। और मैं उसे ना हमेशा जोड़ के रखती हूँ टॉप पेरेंट्स ऐप से भी, ताकि वो इसी बहाने लेकिन कुछ सीखे, क्योंकि बच्चे फोन में लगते ही लगते हैं। तो किसी का बच्चा नहीं है जो फोन ना बिल्कुल देखता हो। तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि हम इस बहाने ही सही कम से कम बच्चे को कुछ सीखें, कुछ सिखाएं, उसे अपने आप को भी एक मौका मिलना चाहिए उन बच्चों को ना। ये नहीं होना चाहिए हर टाइम किताबों का बर्डन ही उन पर मतलब बना रहे।
You were listening to Gauri Gupta, Sashwati Banerjee and Priyanka Agarwal in the second episode of our 5-episode series in association with the CSF. For those of you who would like to listen to the first episode, the link to the same is provided in the description. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.